Do you want to find out why the most famous carpenter in history is still the greatest source of money and inspiration in the world? Stick around until the end because we're going to show you the formula to gain the resilience of an icon and multiply your prosperity without needing miracles, just discipline.
What would the Messiah do with a smartphone today? If you think Jesus Christ only preached love and ethics, get ready to be proven wrong. We're going to analyze the focus, leadership, and character that transformed him into humanity's biggest legacy and success case study.
So, Daniel, let's kick off with the part that's both the most cringy and the most powerful, the intrapersonal. Think about it. The guy needed an iron mindset and unshakable resilience to endure preaching love and ethics in an era where crucifixion was essentially a bloody reality show. We complain about internet haters, but his purpose was so clear that he just shrugged off the Roman Empire and the moral police of the time. This is what I'm saying. Without a monastic level of internal discipline and laser focus, you can't even stick to your January diet, let alone change human history.
I totally agree, Karen. What he accomplished was a mental transformation that echoed through history. It's not just about spirituality in the religious sense. It's about self-knowledge, knowing who he was and what he needed to do. Think of his creativity in using parables. It was the content marketing of the time, simplifying complex ideas so even a fisherman could grasp them. He couldn't afford to be verbose. He had to be direct, persuasive, and inspiring. If you want to develop this today, stop stalling and go read the Bible. Not just the New Testament, but the prophets. It's a manual for optimism under pressure, a case study on maintaining integrity when everyone wants to see you fail.
Exactly. And speaking of pressure, if we analyze his resilience, most of us give up at the first no from the boss or the first ghosting from a crush. He saw his own friends fail. Hello, Peter and Judas, was betrayed and denied, yet kept his head high. That's not just faith, that's brutal discipline and knowing that his source of strength didn't depend on external approval. The moral of the story is your success starts within. Want to be more productive? Start by asking yourself if you have the same determination to wake up early and go to the gym that he had to face the Sanhedrin. I bet most people choose the bed, while he chose the purpose on the mountaintop.
And what about his focus? He wasn't worried about becoming rich or getting immediate recognition, otherwise he would have accepted the tempting offers in the desert. His investment was in the long term, in the legacy. We live in a world where if your post doesn't go viral in 5 minutes, you already feel like a failure. He played the game of message sustainability. Want a practical example? Watch the film The Passion of the Christ, as visceral as it is, to understand the dimension of maintaining optimism and integrity when everything and everyone is against you. That's real empowerment, not just motivational memes.
You nailed it. And his fixation on purpose is what separates the players from the extras. The Messiah wasn't messing around being an example. He was the icon himself. Think about this. He was a carpenter who became the greatest leader in history without needing a coaching certification or an MBA. He had a mindset of victory so strong that he rewrote the calendar. Now, tell me, Daniel, what should people prioritize today? Immediate income and fast money, or leveraging their own mind? I say it's the mind, but Gen Z only thinks about easy money. Which side do you defend in this current polarization, Daniel?
I think balance is a good way out. I'm going to avoid this controversy.
Taking a giant leap, let's move to interpersonal. It's useless to have a millionaire mindset if you treat people like dirt, right? His leadership wasn't about shouting orders, but about high-impact communication. He had the knack for persuasion without being manipulative, which is severely lacking in today's influencers. When he said, "Come and follow me," it wasn't a request. It was an irresistible call to action that activated the purpose of those listening. He was the master of active listening, stopping to hear the Samaritan woman or the blind man of Jericho. The man genuinely paid attention.
No doubt, the empowerment he generated came from that radical empathy. He didn't just feel the pain of others, he acted upon it, which is the essence of proactivity. His miracles were, in reality, demonstrations of leadership that inspired transformation. Do you want growing in your career or your social circle? Start practicing collaboration as he did with his disciples. He took a bunch of fishermen and tax collectors, people no one thought much of, and turned them into the greatest promoters of change the world has ever seen. It's the oldest and most effective upskilling in history.
And what about the negotiation in the temple? Chasing out the money changers with a whip wasn't exactly a networking session, was it? But it was justice and integrity over easy profit. He was protecting the purpose of the place. This leads us to reflect. How many of us let the temple of our lives be dominated by snake oil salesmen and people who only think about multiplying money? He was living proof that transparency and intentions is the greatest asset in communication. If he were a CEO today, he would be hated for being too ethical.
We cannot ignore the persuasion inherent in his character. His words carried weight because his example was unquestionable. It's no wonder he remains an icon. When you look at leaders today, many only care about image and recognition, but their progress is empty. To have leadership that lasts, watch a documentary about Martin Luther King Jr., a follower of his, by the way, to see how communication aligned with morals and integrity generates long-term victory.
And his proactivity was almost annoying to those who were complacent. He didn't wait for people to come to him to heal them. He went to the villages, stimulating change. It's the opposite of that boss who stays locked in the office and sends the intern to solve the problem. And returning to the polarized talk, he defended social justice, helping the poor and excluded, but also respected the law, giving to Caesar what was Caesar's. This is the balance between the planner who thinks about the grand vision and the executor who rolls up their sleeves and makes things happen. Which side of this scale is the world lacking more today, Daniel? Action or strategy for prosperity?
Putting me on the spot again, huh? Well, in these days where most people seek immediate answers and results, I believe that a bit more strategy is needed for prosperity.
Now we arrive at the point where things get real for many people. Morals. It's useless to be the smartest and most persuasive person in the world if you don't have the ethics to even return the wrong change. His standard of integrity was so high it was irritating. He wasn't just about preaching transparency, he was transparency. His discourse directly confronted the religious hypocrisy of the time, the greed and the lack of social justice. Think about the scene, him allowing himself to be judged by Pilate, an act of responsibility that many leaders today would avoid by escaping to Miami.
And that's where the paradox lies. His character, which was pure integrity, was what made him the most controversial. He challenged the status quo in a way that left no room for dishonesty. The responsibility he assumed was not just for his followers, but for all humanity. Want a practical example of how to apply this today? Think about that moment when you're about to lie on your resume or invent a flimsy excuse at work. Remember that to achieve true success, your legacy must be built on ethics, not on castles of sand made of convenient lies.
And what he did was give permission for ordinary people to be ethical, showing that justice was not a privilege of the rich or the religious. The scene of forgiveness to the adulterous woman is the greatest lesson in empathy mixed with integrity. He didn't diminish the error, but questioned the hypocrisy. It's the famous, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." Who is without sin? No one. That is the difference between a leader who imposes morality and one who inspires moral transformation through character. Let's be honest, Daniel. Is our world today leaning more towards the money changers in the temple or the integrity of character?
That's what I call moral sustainability. He established a system of values that even 2,000 years later is the foundation for the ethics and growing of many nations. His proactivity in defending the marginalized, in seeking justice for the orphan and the widow, is true leadership. For those who want to understand the dimension of this, I recommend reading about Mahatma Gandhi or Nelson Mandela. They applied, in politics and negotiation, this principle of non-negotiable integrity, showing that real victory does not come from shortcuts. That is empowerment that comes from the inside out.
Exactly. We live in the age of hype, where everyone wants to be rich and a millionaire fast, and transparency is just an Instagram filter. He proved that progress and prosperity are only sustained when the foundation is character. If you can't be honest in the small things, how will you be responsible with the multiplication of money and investment? His example is not just for the church, it's a manual of focus and discipline for anyone who wants to build something that will last longer than the next TikTok trend. So the question remains, are you looking for shortcuts or building a legacy of integrity? And what is the hottest topic today, Daniel, that needs this moral magnifying glass? Legalization of drugs or total prohibition? What would his vision of justice and responsibility be in this debate?
That's the fiery controversy. In the debate over the legalization of drugs versus prohibition, his figure would force us to look beyond the law. He would see the law, prohibition, as important for responsibility and social order. But he would look at the cause of the pain, the marginalization, and the lack of purpose that lead to addiction. He would say, the law is important, but where is the empathy and justice for those who suffer?
I, on the other hand, think he would give a time out to the crowd that only thinks about free market and income based on addiction. But he would also call out those who only want state intervention to solve the problem without individual discipline. Transparency is the way. Those who want to be free to use must be responsible for the consequences. What do you, the listener, think about this? Leave your comments below. Do you advocate for unrestricted freedom of expression and choices, or regulation of social media and life? We've reached the pinnacle. Results. The guy achieved the greatest victory in history through his death, which is the ultimate definition of counterintuitive. The final result wasn't immediate wealth or political power, but the recognition and legacy that redefined the concept of success. His productivity wasn't measured by hours worked, but by the transformation of lives. He leveraged a movement that started with 12 people and is now the biggest source of inspiration on the planet. If you want real prosperity, ask yourself, what am I building that will last more than 2,000 years?
And the key to his success was sustainability. He didn't build physical buildings or empires that crumbled. He built mindset and purpose in people. That is an investment with infinite return. Think about the multiplying of the message. He planted a seed and it became a global tree. For those seeking personal growing and developing, his example shows that the focus should not be on quick earning, but on the integrity and ethics of your foundation. Want to see an example of a legacy that is sustained? Study the scientific or Enlightenment revolutions. They're proof that ideas with real purpose are more powerful than any army.
And the prosperity he promised wasn't just money in the pocket, but independence of spirit. He taught people to focus on what is eternal, not on the perishable. If we bring this to today's reality, where Gen Z only thinks about passive income and becoming a millionaire selling courses, the message is a slap in the face. Responsibility for one's own character is the first step towards lasting prosperity. If your success depends on stepping on others or selling your soul, your recognition will be as ephemeral as a story that disappears in 24 hours.
His productivity was in empowering others. He didn't create dependent followers. He created leaders. After him, the disciples went out, each with their own proactivity and discipline, to promote transformation. This is a model of decentralized leadership, which generates progress without needing total control. If you're an entrepreneur, stop trying to do everything alone and start collaborating and encouraging your team. The greatest result you can have is when your team achieves victory without needing your presence.
And to finish with a flourish, his recognition did not come from the powerful of the time. It came from the people. It came from the empathy and justice he practiced. This is a lesson that true success is not dictated by titles or bank accounts, but by the legacy of character you leave. He was the master of the sustainability of an idea. Now we need to talk about the polarization of our era, artificial intelligence versus human intelligence. Which of these two forces do you think has more potential for developing and prosperity in the future, Daniel? The organic brain and creativity, or the algorithm and soulless productivity?
It's tempting to bet on the algorithm for sheer productivity and earning, but I'll stick with the human element. AI can calculate the best investment, but only human integrity and purpose can decide if that investment serves a greater good. The legacy depends on the human's moral compass.
See, I think we need to marry both. Use the AI for the brutal productivity and keep the human for the ethical focus and creativity. But the discussion is open. What do you think, audience? Which intelligence guarantees true progress and prosperity? Leave your opinion in the comments. So, what's the moral of the story from this carpenter who became an icon? It's simple. Your prosperity and your legacy don't come from shortcuts, but from non-negotiable integrity and character. He gave you the biggest lesson in leadership. True power is empowering others. Think about your life. Are you focused on being the protagonist or just an extra waiting for a miracle to happen? Your journey of personal developing requires proactivity.
Exactly. His example is not a fairy tale. It's a manual for resilience and focus. Is your intrapersonal life, your mindset and purpose, strong enough to face the crucifixion of daily problems? And is your interpersonal life, your communication and empathy, multiplying good or just stress? Stop procrastinating and start being the author of your own transformation. What was the most controversial insight you took from this video?
Your future success depends on your morals and results today. It's no use wanting to be a millionaire if your ethics are worth less than cheap street food. To continue growing and enhancing your self-knowledge, you need to always stay connected with those who challenge you. So if you enjoyed this motivational slap in the face, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.
And so we can know where our community full of focus and prosperity comes from, leave a comment below. How old are you watching this video? We want to know if we're speaking more to Gen Z looking for quick income or to the planners who are already building a legacy. Leave your comment and we'll see you in the next video.